The president's fiancé who is not married, brings his first love home to live with him. I pretend to be on a business trip and move out, then turn around and register with someone else in 10 minutes. He regrets it like crazy. The president's fiancé who is not married, brings his first love home to live with him. I pretend to be on a business trip and move out, then turn around and register with someone else in 10 minutes, and he regrets it like crazy. On the day yoga and brought Xie Ying back, a rare, heavy rain fell beneath the clouds. I had just finished overtime at the company and pushed open the front door, only to see two dependent figures sitting on the sofa. Yujian was bent over, holding Xie Ying's fingertips, pinching a cotton swab to delicately apply medicine to the reddened area on the back of her hand. That kind of gaze I once thought belonged only to me. When you're back, Yuan heard the movement more clearly and didn't even lift his head, his voice carrying a naturally cold indifference. Xie Ying's home was hit by a flood, and as a girl out on her own, she's not safe outside, so I asked her to move in for a while. In the next moment, she trembled like a frightened young deer, her pale face filled with tears, looking at me timidly. Beautiful sister, I'm really sorry. I just have nowhere else to go. Joran said you are usually broad-minded and certainly wouldn't mind. I stood in the foyer, not even having time to take off my soaked high heels. The rainwater dripped onto the floor from the hem of the skirt, making heavy sounds. Watching their two overlapping figures at that moment, the string that had been taut for 3 years in my heart snapped with a hard pop. I don't mind, I spoke softly, my tone so flat it even surprised me. John finally lifted his eyelids to glance at me. The guardedness that had been frozen between his brows loosened for a moment, and the corner of his mouth even curved into a triumphant smile. I knew you would understand. Xie Ying has a weak constitution. Clear out the master bedroom on the second floor first. The light there is good, suitable for her recovery. He said it so naturally, as if it were his subordinate's dormitory, not the engagement home we had decorated together. There's too much stuff in the master bedroom. Moving it will be troublesome. I lowered my eyelids, hiding the trace of cold mockery beneath them. Coincidentally, the company recently took on an out-of-town project lasting 35 days that needs follow-up. I'll move to the guest room tonight to pack and leave directly for the airport tomorrow morning. Xie Ying quickly stood up, her tone full of panic. Sister Wei, how can this be? Is it because I came that you have to leave? If so, I'll leave right now. She made a move to get up, but John pressed her back onto the sofa. Nonsense, he really is going on a business trip. John turned to look at me, his eyes carrying a hint of approving gentleness. When did you decide this? Why didn't you mention it earlier? The project was just approved, tight schedule, heavy workload. I turned and walked toward the stairs, my back ramrod straight, to avoid delaying work. I won't be coming back for a while. Enjoy your stay. Back in the guest room, I closed the door. Unlike what he might have expected, I didn't start packing for any business trip. Instead, I pulled out several huge burlap sacks from the cabinet, moving with silent efficiency. For 3 years I had cooked for him, strategized for his career, and even smoothed away all my rough edges to suit his tastes. But in the end, even his scheming first love could move into my master bedroom with just a few tears. 3 years of this relationship suddenly felt as cheap as a joke. I pulled open the vanity drawer. Inside lay our engagement ring. I didn't take it with me. Instead, I tossed it into the deepest corner of the bedside drawer. The clock on the wall ticked on, every second slipping away. Without turning on the light, I packed every single thing that belonged to me in that room into bags in the pitch black, until late into the night, when faint laughter and increasingly gentle whispers drifted from the master bedroom next door. Expressionless, I snapped the lock shut on the last suitcase. John, you think I'm backing down, but you don't realize I'm making room for you, clearing you a space in my life for good. Before dawn, the moving company I'd called arrived right on time downstairs. To avoid disturbing anyone in the next room, I specifically told the movers to handle everything quietly. Dozens of large boxes were carried out in a steady stream. In less than half an hour, the once packed guest room became hollow and silent, with only a few scraps of cheap cardboard boxes left. I took one last look at the tightly shut master bedroom door. Behind it, John was sleeping soundly with the beloved woman in his heart. He was probably still dreaming of having it all, a wife and a mistress. I curled the corners of my lips into a faint, knowing smile, then I turned and walked decisively down the stairs, making not a single sound. The early morning air was damp with the aftermath of rain. I stood by the roadside, watching the moving truck disappear down the long street. Inside it were not just my clothes, but all the humility and hopes I'd held for these 3 years. I hailed a cab and headed straight for the Civil Affairs Bureau. The sky was just beginning to lighten when I saw that someone was already sitting on the steps of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The man wore an impeccably tailored dark grey suit, sharp and elegant, though his tie was slightly askew, and between his fingers rested a half-smoked cigarette. He was extraordinarily handsome, with deep-set eyes and a straight nose, but exuded a bone-chilling, dejected air. Zhongli Ting, once the most dashing and powerful elite in Yuncheng, recently sidelined by family infighting and publicly jilted by his fiancée, becoming the laughingstock of the city's elite. I walked up and stopped in front of him, my shadow falling. At his feet, he lifted his gaze to look at me with not much surprise in his eyes, only a cynical weariness. "Miss Wen, showing up at this hour, you're not here to cut in line, are you, Mr. Zhongli?" I said, meeting his eyes and getting straight to the point. "Since we've both been cast aside like worthless things, why not try a different way of living?" Zhongli Ting flicked off his cigarette ash and curled his lips into an amused smile. "A different way of living? How exactly? Marry me." I gripped my household registration book tighter, my voice as calm as if I were negotiating a $10 million deal. "You, John, and the ex-fiancé who moved into my wedding house are busy celebrating with your arch-rival. Maybe two cast-offs like us, coming together, could make a winning move." He stared at me in silence, his gaze like a sharp blade trying to cut through my skin to see my true intentions. After a long moment, he stubbed out his cigarette and slowly stood up. The sheer force of his height made me hold my breath instinctively. "If you marry me, Miss Wen, you'll be making an enemy of the entire Yu family. You might even lose everything you've worked so hard for in your career." "Are you sure?" "I'm only sure of one thing. I don't want to spend another second in this mire." Just then, the doors of the Civil Affairs Bureau slowly opened. Zhongli Ting let out a soft laugh, deep, magnetic, carrying a kind of mad desperation born of one who had already hit rock bottom. "Fine, since this world has treated us unfairly, let's join forces and turn it upside down." We walked into the hall side by side, no flowers, no blessings, not even much small talk, just forms, photos, and the crisp, forceful stamp of the seal. From the moment we stepped in to the moment I held that little red booklet in my hand, it took only 10 minutes. When I stood under the sunlight again, my phone screen began flashing wildly. It was a message from Yu John. "When you, Xia Ying said she wants to drink that pumpkin porridge you used to make. Her stomach's been off. Could you make a batch and leave it in the fridge before you go on your business trip?" Reading this, I nearly laughed out loud. Not only had he trampled my dignity underfoot, but now he wanted me, the rightful fiancé, to wait on the woman he truly cared for. I turned to look at the man beside me. Zhongli Ting was casually shoving the marriage certificate into his pocket, his movements elegant and unthinking. "Mrs. Zhongli, now that we've got the certificate, isn't it time you moved to a new place?" Right in front of him I called you John back. His slightly irritated voice came through. "When you, what's taking so long? Is the porridge ready?" "You John," I interrupted, my tone lighter than ever before. "No porridge, but I left a gift for you on the living room coffee table. Don't forget to sign for it." Without waiting for his response, I hung up and promptly blocked him on every channel. Beside me, Zhongli Ting raised an eyebrow, then took my bag from my hand. "Come on, let me show you our new home." When Yu John rushed back to the villa, the living room held only Xia Ying, standing awkwardly by the coffee table. What I had left as my gift was a printed copy of a dissolution of engagement agreement, along with a supplementary card that had been completely maxed out. That card was the living allowance he had given me for 3 years. I had scrimped and saved, not touching a cent, and just moments ago I used that money to buy myself an expensive single-life celebration gift and made a donation in his name to a stray animal rescue shelter. "Do you think, sister, when you misunderstood something?" Xia Hong asked, her eyes red as she pinched the flimsy agreement. "She moved everything out, didn't even leave a toothbrush. Is she angry with me?" Yu John looked at the signed agreement, complete with a thumbprint, and felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest. But soon, the anger of being slighted took over. "Nonsense, where could she go?" He yanked off his tie in frustration and dialed my number, only to be met with a mechanical recording saying the Phone was off. With a personality like hers, she can't even afford a place to rent without me. This trick of playing hard to get, she won't last long. At that very moment, I was sitting in Zhong Lighting's pitch-black SUV. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the car, as cool and restrained as the man himself. We weren't heading back to the crumbling old Zhong family mansion, but to a high-rise apartment in the city center. No one else lives here, no unwanted visitors, Zhong Lighting said as he pushed the door open and placed a spare key on the entryway cabinet. The master bedroom is yours, I'll take the study. I looked around the minimalist space, somewhat surprised. Mr. Zhong, I assumed someone like you would propose some sort of special compensation after a marriage of convenience. Zhong Lighting turned around, leaning against the floor-to-ceiling window beyond the glass above the clouds. The city's dazzling neon lights traced a deep and unreadable skyline. I married you because I needed a tool to shut the old man in my family up, and you needed a safe haven. He pulled a cigarette from the pack, twirling it between his fingers without lighting it. Other than that, I have no interest in forcing myself on a woman who just got her heart broken. I'm not heartbroken, I cut my losses, I corrected him, taking the cigarette from his hand and putting it back in the pack. Since we're married, your problems are my problems. I hear your uncle is chipping away at your shares in Zhongli Group. A flicker of appreciation crossed Zhong Lighting's darkened gaze. Well informed, I spent 3 years by Yu John's side after all. I picked up plenty of his shady business tactics, I said, walking to the window to stand beside him. To take back what's yours, going head-to-head won't work, you have to break it down from the inside. There's a celebrity charity auction tomorrow. Yu John will be there with Xia Ying making a high-profile appearance. I think we should show up too. Zhong Lighting raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Showing up at an event like that means completely breaking ties with Yu John. Even if you try to mend something broken, the cracks remain. I turned to look at him, my gaze firm. Better to shatter it completely and get something new. He stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly smiled. It was the first time since we got our marriage license that he had smiled with such warmth. All right then, tomorrow I'll go with you to shatter old dreams. The next afternoon Yu John was busy picking out a dress for Xia Ying to wear to the auction. Xia Ying had her eye on a pale pink strapless dress, delicate as a flower in need of protection. John, this dress costs 80,000 yuan, isn't that too expensive? Xia Ying whispered tentatively. Buy it. Yu John waved his hand generously, yet inexplicably found himself picturing the plain, professional outfits I usually wore. He shook his head and muttered to himself, when you is probably holed up in some budget hotel right now waiting for me to come get her. Bringing you out tonight is meant to show her who truly deserves to be cherished in this circle. He was fully convinced that at the auction he would see a haggard version of me, desperately trying to win him back. What he didn't know was that some doors once closed can never be pushed open again. The banquet hall of the auction was brightly lit. When Yu John walked into the venue with Xia Ying on his arm, it indeed caused quite a stir. People in the circle all knew about my engagement to him, and now he was blatantly parading around with another woman, a public slap in my face. John, it seems like everyone is looking at us, Xia Ying said, shrinking slightly into Yu John's embrace, though a hint of undisguised smugness lurked in her eyes. You're my date, let them look, Yu John replied, patting her hand reassuringly while his gaze swept back and forth across the room. He was looking for me, waiting for me to rush over and confront him as usual or humbly beg him to come home. However, when the front door opened again, the room's discussions instantly faded. I took off my normally conservative professional suit and wore a dark green silk backless long dress. This color is extremely hard to pull off, yet it sets off my pale skin, making me look like a quiet orchid blooming in a deep valley, exuding a noble aloofness that strangers should not approach. Beside me, Zhong Lighting changed into a full suit, and the long silent, long-held aura of a superior erupted. His cold, stern face was enough to make people unwilling to look directly at him. He slightly bent his arm, signaling me to lean on him. Eugene's voice was almost squeezed through his teeth as he strode up to us and faced us with a grim expression. Is this what you call a business trip? Sneaking into a place like this and even dragging in a failed, ruinous partner? What on earth are you doing? I stood my ground, not letting his anger affect my mood. President Yu, please watch your words in public. My tone was detached, polite as if I were facing a stranger. Client, and besides, Mr. Zhongli is not a ruined person, he is my lawful husband. Lawful husband. Yu Jian seemed to hear a great joke and his eyes reddened a little with laughter. When you did this just to make me angry, shamelessly finding someone to act with. Don't forget, we haven't dissolved the engagement yet. Your behavior is called infidelity. President Yu's memory isn't very good. I calmly pulled a neatly folded piece of paper from my handbag. Although the engagement dissolution agreement wasn't signed yesterday, I have already filed with the court to revoke the cohabitation and reclaim the property. As for my current marriage, I pressed a copy of the marriage certificate onto his chest, the red-backed photo clearly showing my and Zhongli Ting's smiling faces. Zhongli Ting and I sat side by side, and though there were no intimate gestures, the sense of harmony between us was undeniable. Yu Jian scanned the date and practically was struck by lightning. Yesterday at 10 in the morning. You left my house less than 3 hours ago and got a marriage license with someone else. To be precise, 10 minutes. Zhongli Ting timely wrapped an arm around my waist, the warmth of his palm passing through the thin fabric, unusually firm. President Yu, since it's already, with Miss Xia taking care, when Yu's life from now on won't require your worrying about it. Xia Ying stood nearby pale, wanting to say something to ease Yu Jian's outburst, but Yu Jian couldn't see her at all now. He stared fixedly at the hand around my waist, the veins on his forehead bulging. Are you crazy? Do you know what Zhongli family's situation is right now? If you follow him, you'll only suffer. Suffering is better than being nauseated, I replied coldly, taking Zhongli Ting's arm and walking past him straight toward the head table. After the banquet began, Yu Jian sat there in a daze, spiritless. He had originally prepared a bunch of humiliating words for me and imagined countless ways to force me to bow. But now it felt like a meticulously prepared knockout blow landing on cotton. Emptiness and suffocation filled his heart. He watched me bow my head and whisper with Zhongli Ting, watched Zhongli Ting carefully cut my steak. Such closeness was a treatment he had never given me in 3 years. John, I want some water, Xia Ying whispered. John whipped his head around, his eyes so sinister and terrifying. Can't you see I'm busy? Get it yourself. Xia Ying froze in place, tears welling up in her eyes. While John had already turned back, fixing his gaze firmly on me, his fingernails digging deep into his palms, the auction reached its midpoint, and John remained restless as a caged beast, his eyes fixed on me. When the deep blue diamond ring named Aurora was presented on the display stand, the atmosphere in the room reached its peak. It was the final highlight of the evening and also the wedding gift John had once casually promised me. John, this ring is so beautiful, like a star, Xia Ying said, sitting beside him, her eyes filled with longing, her voice soft enough for only those nearby to hear. Eager to regain a sense of control, John barely hesitated before raising his bidding paddle. 5 million. As gasps of surprise echoed around him, he turned provocatively toward Yu and Zhong Lighting, his expression seeming to say, see, without my financial support, the man beside you can't even uphold appearances like this. Zhong Lighting remained impassive, leisurely sipping his champagne. I could feel his hand gently squeeze mine beneath the table, a quiet reassurance to wait and see how things unfold. 6 million. I raised my hand and stated the figure. John's expression instantly turned remarkably vivid, anger mixed with disbelief. Where did you get the money? Don't try to save face at a time like this. You're worrying too much, President Yu, I said, looking at him with a smile. This is my own savings. Besides, since my husband dared to bring me here, he certainly wouldn't let me leave empty-handed. 7 million. John gritted his teeth and raised the bid, while Xia Ying beside him looked a little pale, probably feeling that this number exceeded the budget for sponsoring a friend. The bid climbed all the way to 12 million, 15 million, and Zhongli Ting finally spoke, his voice quiet but carrying a decisive, intimidating undertone. John stood up suddenly, his voice a bit off-key from excitement. Zhongli Ting, you've even cut off the family's dividends now. How do you intend to pay when you're following him to go crazy, and in the end you'll be the one who's humiliated? There's no need for Master Yu to trouble himself over this. Zhongli Ting stood up, buttoning his suit, his voice was cold. Wang Ershu is indeed eating away at my shares, but he forgot that the Zhongli Group's Overseas Independent Trust is named only after me. This 15 million is only a small fraction in my account. The hall erupted in an uproar, so this so-called destitute nobleman had long prepared a countermeasure, and the supposed debasement was just a ruse to lure out the truth. The Yu families and slumped back into his chair. His face as grey as earth, he watched the etiquette lady present the diamond ring to me, watched Zhongli Ting publicly take my hand and slowly slide the brilliant blue ring onto my ring finger. "It suits you." Zhongli Ting lowered his head and softly whispered in my ear so close I could feel his breath. I looked up toward Yuzan. At the distance, the light in his eyes had completely vanished. That arrogant certainty that I would turn back, that I couldn't live without him, was crushed at this moment. After the banquet, I went to the restroom to touch up my makeup. As soon as I stepped out, Yuan blocked the end of the corridor. He reeked of alcohol, his eyes red as he stared at the ring on my finger. "When you've won, you want to use this to take Summer Ying home, right?" He reached out to grab my shoulder, his voice hoarse. "Enough. Come home with me. If you return this ring and divorce the marriage, I can pretend nothing happened. I'll send Summer Ying away." I stepped back to avoid his touch, my gaze as cold as ice. "Yuan, you still don't understand. I'm not retaliating against you. I'm letting go of myself. As for Summer Ying, you mustn't send her away. You both must stay together forever, so you won't harm others again." After I finished, I brushed past him. The heavy thud of something crashing into the wall behind me. Accompanying that sound was a deeper, suppressed roar, but I didn't look back. At the apartment, Zhongli Ting didn't return to the study immediately. He opened a bottle of aged red wine. "Tonight at the banquet, the look in your eyes seemed like you were going to swallow me whole," he said, swaying the tall glass, the dark red liquid reflecting in his pupils. "Hearing about you, you have more resolve than I imagined." I took off my footsore high heels, walked barefoot on the carpet, and only then did the fatigue truly wash over me. If I didn't appear more decisive, he would think I was still waiting for him to step down. The thing about these people is that they're best at stepping on someone's bottom line and then giving a little cheap warmth. Zhongli Ting put down the wine glass and stepped in front of me, his figure casting a shadow, but one thing he said was right. The internal strife within the Zhongli family is far more brutal than outsiders see. If you tie yourself to me, the road ahead will be difficult. The road is hard because we haven't reached the end. I stared into his eyes. "I have on hand nearly 3 years' worth of all the U Group's audit data. Yuan, in order to suppress you uncle in the short term, did a lot of fake accounting on the Chengxi project. If you hand all of this to the regulators, he will be in trouble. Your second uncle loses his biggest external support. The rest should be easy for you, right?" Zhongli Ting's pupils suddenly dilated, then a profound smile appeared. "You're tougher than him. He thinks you're just a mild-mannered loyal wife, but he doesn't know you're the one who holds the lifeline. This is what he owes me." I calmly turned around and walked into the bedroom. 3 years of youth should at least earn some interest in return. At the Yu Villa, the atmosphere was suffocating. Yu John sat on the sofa, chain-smoking, the living room thick with pungent smoke. Xie Ying sat beside him, tentatively reaching for his jacket. "John, stop smoking, it's bad for you," when he might have acted on impulse. "Once she calms down, calm down." "You." John whipped his head around, his eyes so sinister that Xie Ying's fingers trembled. "She's already gotten the marriage certificate, and you call that impulse? Xie Ying, when you moved in, didn't you say you'd manage things with her? And now she's emptied the house and stomped my face into the ground." Tears burst from Xie Ying's eyes as she choked out, "I didn't think it would come to this. I just wanted a place to stay. Since when he feels so strongly about it, I'll move out tomorrow." "Move out? What good would that do now?" Yu John waved his hand in agitation, knocking a vase off the coffee table. Shards scattered across the floor. In the past, Xie Ying's tears would have made him surrender unconditionally. But now, looking at her tear-streaked face, he felt not pity but an endless, gnawing irritation. All he could see in his mind was the way I had looked at the banquet while holding Zhongli Ting's arm, a radiant, commanding presence he had never seen in me before. It left him feeling as though a piece of his heart was missing. His phone suddenly buzzed. It was his secretary, her voice frantic. "Mr. Yu, it's bad. The regulators just received an anonymous tip that the accounts for our West City project have serious violations. They've already arrived at the finance department to review the records, and Zhongli Group has suddenly withdrawn all their cooperation intentions." The cigarette in Yu John's hand burned down to his fingertip, but he felt no pain. "Who filed the report?" "The data in the tip is extremely precise. It even includes the internal contracts from your private safe. That kind of information, only someone closest to you could access." Yu John slumped back against the sofa, his eyes shaking violently. "The person closest to him? Who else could it be but Wenny?" The one who had stayed up late to help him reconcile accounts and brought him coffee in the dead of night. Yuan nearly went crazy and rushed down to Zhongli Ting's apartment building, standing guard in the cold wind all night. It wasn't until the morning sun pierced the clouds that he saw the black SUV slowly emerging from the underground garage. He risked his life to throw himself in front of the car, the screeching brakes tearing through the street's silence. Zhongli Ting nonchalantly rolled down the window, resting his hand on the steering wheel, his posture regal and cold. "When ye come down," Yuan's eyes were bloodshot, banging on the passenger window, his voice hoarse beyond measure. "Did you leak the accounts for the Western City project? How could you be so cruel? That was the blood, sweat, and tears of several generations of the Yu family. Do you know this could send me to prison?" I push open the car door, step onto the high-heeled red stilettos and stand firmly, looking at this downtrodden man before me. Not a trace of emotion rises in my heart, there is only a calm, settled feeling. "You John, when you were applying medicine to Xia Ying in our wedding suite, did you ever think about how cruel you might be to me?" I meet his gaze, my tone cold as ice. "I tallied those accounts piece by piece myself. It was to help you avoid risks initially. Now using them to send you to the police cell also counts as having a complete ending." Yu John trembles with anger, reaching out to grab my wrist, but Zhongli Ting, who had just stepped out of the car, grabs his wrist tightly. The grip is incredibly strong, making Yu John's face blanch instantly. "President Yu, is it appropriate to move my wife in front of me?" Zhongli Ting's voice is low, carrying an unyielding coercive force. "Wife, she is using you to take revenge on me." Yu John yells at Zhongli Ting, then turns to me, a few traces of humble pleading in her eyes. As long as you withdraw the report and destroy that original data, I can immediately cut off all ties with Xia Ying. We reconcile and remarry. No, shall we hold a wedding right away?" I seemed to hear some enormous joke and couldn't help but chuckle. "Yu John, do you still think the whole world revolves around you? My marriage to Zhongli Ting is legally protected, and your so-called reconciliation requires that we have been married. Unfortunately, that wedding of ours that hasn't happened yet was smashed by you long ago." As he spoke, Yu John's phone rang sharply. He trembled as he answered, and on speaker came Xia Ying's heart-wrenching cries. "John, the police went to the company and your second uncle brought people and sealed off the house, saying we must repay the debts, driving me out. I'm on the street now. I'm so scared." Yu John stood frozen in place, the phone slipping from his hand, the screen shattering into tiny cracks. He used to hate hearing Xia Ying cry more than anything, but now her sobs fell on his ears like a death knell. The delicate flower he had been so determined to protect had, in this moment, become the final boulder crushing him. "Do you hear that?" I sat back in the car, fastened my seatbelt and glanced sideways at the distraught figure outside the window. "Xia Ying is waiting for you. Since you love her so much, go down to the bottom with her and experience what it truly means to have nowhere to go." The car window slowly rolled up, and Zhongli Ting stepped on the accelerator. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Yu John collapse to his knees in the middle of the road, surrounded by the blare of traffic. He stood like a solitary island. "Feel good?" Zhongli Ting's long fingers tapped rhythmically on the turn signal. "No," I said, gazing at the dazzling blue diamond on my fingertip. "I just feel like the air is finally clean." Yu John's collapse came faster than expected. The once bustling Yu family mansion now had white seals plastered across its front door. Sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window in Zhongli Ting's office, I flipped through the latest financial newspaper. The headline blared, "Yu John restricted from leaving the country, under financial investigation." Just as I was about to set the paper down, heated arguments erupted outside the door. "Let him in," I said, setting down my coffee cup and giving the order. Toward the entrance, the door swung open, and Xia Ying rushed in, disheveled. Gone was the expensive gown she had worn at the banquet that night. Instead, she wore a faded, wrinkled white dress, and even thick foundation couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. "I'm begging you, please save John." She lunged toward my desk, her trembling hands reaching for my sleeve, but I sidestepped just in time. "Miss Xia, I think you've misunderstood," I said unhurriedly, smoothing out the wrinkles in my skirt. "I'm the one who put him away. Don't you think it's absurd to come begging me now?" Xia Ying sobbed pitifully, crumpling to the floor. "John locks himself in that basement flat, less than 30 square meters, drinking all day, seeing no one, just calling out your name over and over. He says he was wrong, That he never should have fallen for vanity and taken your kindness for granted when if you'll just drop the charges, I'll leave Yunqing and disappear from your sight forever. Is that what you call wrong? I bend down, staring into her eyes filled with desire and fear, my tone calm without a hint of fluctuation. He only regretted losing a free labor force that could be summoned at will, not only helping him with housework but also handling auditing data. As for you, Miss Xia, you're so eager for him to rise again now because you've found that without the Yu family to lean on, you can't even pay next month's rent, right? Pinpointed. Xia Ying's face instantly turned deathly white. Her crying stopped abruptly. People like you are best at drawing blood under the banner of affection. I straightened up, pressed the intercom. Show her out. Xia Ying was taken away by the security. Zhongli Ting had just finished a meeting. He walked up behind me, naturally took the slightly chilled coffee from my hand, casually set it aside, then drew me into his arms in the office chair. Tired of watching the show, he lowered his head, the tip of his nose close to my temple. Just a bit dull. I leaned into his chest, feeling the tremor from his heartbeat. Yu Jiaran asked a lawyer to pass along a message, wanting to see me one last time. If I don't go, he'll refuse to cooperate with all subsequent asset liquidations. Zhongli Ting's gaze sank, his fingers curling a strand of my hair. Do you want to go? Yes. Why not? I looked up, meeting his deep eyes. Some endings, if you don't witness them firsthand, can't be called a full stop, right? I'll be with you, he said simply. No, this time I'll go alone. I reached up, pressing my finger against his lips, fingertips touching his cool skin. Some accounts can only be settled by the parties involved. Sir Zhongli, you just wait for me in the car. He stared at me for a long while, finally sighing in resignation and kissing the tip of my finger. That was the last time I walked toward that quagmire that had trapped me for 3 years in the visiting room of the detention center, separated by a thick layer of bulletproof glass. I saw Du, an increasingly serene, the once vigorous and even somewhat obsessive CEO of a wealthy family, now dressed in a coarse gray prison uniform, with stubble black and blue on his chin. When he saw me push the door open, the originally dead eyes suddenly flashed with a startling light. And he even hurriedly grabbed the microphone. I knew you would come. You still care about me, don't you? His voice was unusually hoarse from going so long without water, like sandpaper scraping across the floor. I sat down but didn't pick up the receiver, just pressed the speakerphone button. You John, don't get the wrong idea. I'm only here to have you sign the liquidation agreement. I slid a document toward him, pressing my fingertip on the signature line. Sign it, and the remaining debt will be taken over by the trust fund. At least you won't have to worry about Xia Ying being driven into a corner by creditors. But Yu John didn't even look at the document. He stared at me, his eyes quickly reddening. I remember everything now. That night in the master bedroom, I heard you packing your things. The truth is, I was awake the whole time. I kept thinking you'd never really leave. At most, you'd throw a tantrum for a couple of days and then come back begging me. How could I be so stupid? How did I ever lose you? You're not stupid, you're cruel. I calmly cut through his regret. You were so sure I loved you that you drained me without mercy. You brought Xia Ying home not because she had nowhere to go, but because you wanted to see me get jealous, see me give in, just to satisfy your pathetic need for control. That's not true. I really did love you. He slammed against the glass, a dull thud echoing through the room. Love me? I let out a cold laugh. You took me skiing on our anniversary. And when my fever hit 39 degrees, you turned off your phone all night just because Xia Ying said she had a headache. You John, your love is filthy. It makes me sick. He slumped weakly in his chair, tears streaming down into his stubble, looking pathetic and ridiculous. I heard from the lawyer that Zhongli Ting has taken back the offshore trust. His net worth has multiplied several times over now. If you're with him just for the money, I can wait. Once I get out, I'll pay you back double. Just don't be with him, okay? You John, do you still think I chose him for the money? I stood up, looking down at him. He showed me his last card when everyone else had abandoned him. You, on the other hand, only turn your blade on the people closest to you. That's the unbridgeable gap between you and him. I tossed the pen onto the table. Sign it. This is the last thing I'll ever do for you. Once you sign, we will never see each other again in this life. Yu John's hand trembled as he picked up the pen. He looked at my name on the signature line, and large tears splashed onto the paper, blurring the ink. He understood. Once he signed, The only light he had ever truly possessed would go out forever. When I stepped out of the gate of the detention center, a fine rain was starting to fall in Yun City. Zhongli Ting stood at the steps holding a huge black umbrella, and when he saw me come out, he stepped forward quickly and drew me into his arms. The umbrella tilted, shielding us from all the cold. "Finished?" he asked. "Finished." I hooked my arm with his and felt an unprecedented relief. The final signing of that agreement closed. And so did his future of ruin. On the day I heard of his sentence, I was waiting in the private terminal with Zhongli Ting. Yun City's winter was rarely sunny, and golden sunlight spilled onto the marble floor, warm and gentle. This was the last remaining equity transfer document after the settlement. Zhongli Ting handed me a document, with a relaxed expression. "It was not much, but enough for you to open the personal studio you dreamed of in the most prosperous district of Yun City." I took the stack of papers, but merely set them aside on an adjacent waiting seat. "Sir Zhongli, I think you may have forgotten that I am Mrs. Zhongli now." I leaned against the soft leather backrest and mischievously winked at him. Rather than worrying about the equity, I'm more curious whether our trip to the Nordic countries this time really included that supposedly hard-to-book Aurora restaurant. Zhongli Ting gave a soft chuckle and leaned down to place a gentle kiss on my forehead. "Not only the Aurora restaurant, but also all the favors I promised you for the rest of your life." Just as we were about to board, a local social news alert popped up on my phone. A woman surnamed Xia was investigated for extortion and multiple economic disputes, had a physical altercation with a creditor in her rental home, and was ultimately sent to a detention facility. The news photo was blurred, but I could still recognize the once protected, fragile figure in Yu Jiangan's arms. Without Yu Jiangan's shelter, Xia Ying's ability to act coy and weak in front of others appeared so pale and powerless against the cruel rules of survival. In reality, the so-called true love they once prided themselves on had already shattered into a pile of debris. The moment money collapsed. "What are you looking at?" Zhong Lighting followed my gaze for a moment, then reached out with his slender fingers and turned off my phone screen. "Just watching two clowns who've already taken their final bow." I put my phone back in my bag, took his arm and leaned against his shoulder. "Let's go. The crew is waiting for us." We walked up the gangway side by side, the wind brushing past our ears, carrying a scent of freedom. 3 years ago, I thought Yu John was my whole world. For his sake, I lost the proud person I used to be. 3 days ago, I believed that my relationship with Zhong Lighting was nothing more than a gamble I made to survive. But now, looking back, the towering buildings beneath the clouds are shrinking in my sight, all the tangled betrayals, the sleepless nights of grievance, and that version of myself who had knelt in the dust, are left behind for good as this plane takes off. "You John, you once asked me if I could live without you. Now I'm telling you it was only after leaving you that I truly began to live." Zhong Lighting holds my hand tightly, fingers laced together. The warmth of his palm gives me a sense of grounding I've never felt before. Above the clouds, the sky is a brilliant, boundless blue. The rest of my life is long, and this time, finally, I have taken hold of the wheel that belongs to me.